bring in Mike Wise, the Washington Post columnist. His Twitter handle is Mike Wise Guy, and he joins us now. Hi, Mike.
Hi, Dan. No big deal, but because you wanted to tell America how much cooler and more famous you are than me, you just took 2 minutes of my airtime. Thank you.
Who's the most famous?
You know what? Glenn Fry's best work, by the way, I think we all agree, was in Miami Vice.
Ooh,
remember that?
Yeah.
But Smuggler's Blues.
I think you're wrong in that, though. Glenn Fry's best work was in Jerry Maguire.
Oh, good call. I'm not going to debate that.
Yeah, Cardinal GM. Yeah. Most famous person you ever met?
Oh, shoot. I never met him, but I put my hand out at the Atlanta Olympics in 1996, and Ali had just gotten his gold medal again, and he put his hand out, and that touched mine, and he rode by in the golf cart, and it was literally like heraldic trumpets had gone off. It was a religious experience.
That's cool.
That's probably the most famous person I'd ever met, or touched anyway.
You got some infamous people there with the Washington Redskins. The whole I'm trying to figure out who or what is the problem here, Mike.
It's easy for me as at least a decade more longer Washingtonian to say Dan Snyder at all. The fish rots from the head and all that. And I think there is something to be said for that, because when we look at the turning point in RG3's career, the injury against Seattle, and all the cryptic offseason he had before that, and the Shanahan back and forth, I think there was a sense that Dan Snyder enabled him and a little bit, and wanted to parade around with his rookie of the year in the offseason and befriend him. But I think it's even deeper than that. I think it's more systemic. You go back to the offensive lines that this team has had, and say what you want about Dallas under Jerry Jones the last 10 years. The last 4 years, they've drafted 3 offensive linemen in the first round, and all of them are blocking to Tony Romo. I'm not saying that this is not RG3's fault at all, because I think a lot of it is, but he still doesn't have enough around him to ever be thought of as a guy that's going to take this team to an NFC championship game within the next 5 years.
But, Mike, I don't understand why everything inside that locker room somehow ends up outside that locker room, including Jay Gruden critiquing RG3, and here we are, week 11 of the NFL season. I'm just amazed. Really am.
Well, Santana Moss had a great line last week. He called it, I'm done with the – I want people to stop dry snitching here. And I had no idea that dry snitching is sort of not wet snitching, which is just you just tell people directly. Jay Gruden is more of a wet snitcher. I think the things he said about Robert Griffin III being fundamentally flawed yesterday and not taking basic 3-step drops instead, and rather taking 1-step drops and not taking 7-step ones and taking. I think all of that goes back to Jay Gruden probably said that to Robert Griffin III before he even got on top of the lectern. I actually like that the guy's transparent. I understand you want to keep some things in your inner sanctum. And the fact that, that anybody in the locker room might have wanted Colt McCoy to start a couple games rather than RG3, that's all fair game. But, hey, we media live off snitches.
Oh, I agree.
Dan.
I know that. How secure is RG3's future there?
It's a great question. I think I'm going to write a piece for the Post on Sunday basically saying this is the crossroads of the guy's career. He has 6 games. People say this season is about nothing in Washington right now. It is about something. 6 games left to see whether this franchise mortgaged its future in 2012 with all those picks to St. Louis to get this guy. RG3 has got to show he's not great. He's got to be decent because they have a chance up until May to sign him to an extension. And if he doesn't, if they don't sign him, he becomes, Christian Ponder. Let's just keep him around. Let's bring in either draft a young guy or let's get a veteran backup and have him compete for the job. And all of a sudden, this guy it's weird because I haven't seen many more falls like this in sports where a guy was so beloved and he didn't take drugs, performance enhancers. He didn't gamble on his own team. He didn't, fornicate with 80,000 women outside of his marriage. this is a guy who just this fan base fell out of love with RG3 based on just, he became a Kardashian, I guess, in the off season, and they don't like that he's not delivered on the field. And I've never seen it before, and so I think that for me and anybody else around here, the next 6 games are going to be about whether this guy is going to be ever a good or face of the franchise type quarterback again, or is he just this guy that's going to end up like Josh Freeman in a couple years?
Steve Young was quoted recently as saying that RG3, from a source who told Steve Young, is not a hard worker. He doesn't put in the time.
Boy, and I'm not there in the off season, and obviously he's got a lot of interests besides football. I don't know. The idea that somehow a guy, the son of a military man who is notorious for bringing up tires up this little tiny town in Texas as a high school player, has just forgotten his work ethic. I can't even imagine what it took to probably get back from injury, especially the ACL reconstruct. So I'm not going to say Steve's lying. Maybe he doesn't have the attention to detail to understand the schemes and the routes of his receivers like he should. But I can't imagine physically putting time in the gym that Robert Griffin III does not keep his body the way it should be. I'm not going to buy that.
Good luck the next 6 weeks here. You'll certainly have some good storylines there.
Many of them. Best to you.
Thank you, Mike.
Bye, Dan.
That's Mike Wise, Washington Post columnist.